Hey everyone. Being a parent is a balancing act. It's a balancing act between two things which are almost seem to be at opposite ends or at odds with one another, but nevertheless still work in tandem. And what I'm referring to actually is a lesson in this week's Parshat Beshalach. Parshat Beshalach, the context is we're post the 10 plagues. The Jewish people, the Israelites, are out of Egypt. God does all these amazing, fantastic miracles, and out they go after the 10th, the backbreaker, the death of the firstborn. And the beginning of the Parsha tells us that when Paro sent them out, Lo nacham Elokim derech Eretz Pelishtim, God did not lead them the way of the Philistines, through the Sinai Desert, northeast, where they encounter the Philistines, which is the area of Gaza. And no, there is no connection between Palestinians and Philistines. That's a total bubba maisa made up. Don't buy into that. But that's a side point, okay? God didn't send them that way, ki karov hu, even though it was closer. Ki amarachim, because God said, Penyanachem ha'am berotam milchama. He was concerned and worried that once the Israelites, the Jewish people, encountered war, V'shavu Mitzrayma, they would freak out and they'd want to return and go back to Egypt. So he didn't send them that way. There's a simple question over here. God just did 10 miracles. He did all these amazing things. What's another miracle? Okay, so they're going to counter war with the Philistines. So no, do another miracle, wipe out the Philistines, and finish. We're done. Why not just do that? So the lesson here, and it's a lesson for every parent, is you can't play Superman. You can't constantly swoop in to save the day. God doesn't want that relationship with his people. God doesn't want parents to have that relationship with their children either. That's what we need to glean. One of the things we need to glean from this is, as a parent, you don't want to keep doing miracles and saving your kid from whatever they might be doing wrong or difficulty that they might encounter. They'll never be independent if that's the way you're dealing with them. You want to respect their independence. And this is based on idea, all of creation, by the way, to get a little philosophical and mystical here, that the Kabbalah talks about that creation itself was an act of tzimtzum, of God restricting himself. Because when you think of it from a theological / philosophical perspective, an all infinite, all knowing, all everything God, where's there even room for a universe? So he pulls himself back, so to speak, so that there's room for that. It's the same thing in terms of psychology. It's the same thing in terms of parenting, that you got to pull back and respect the independence so they can become independent, so they can develop into something and not just swoop in with your miraculous, we'll fix it perspective. So that's why God didn't want to send them that way, even though, yes, he could fight their battles in amongst the Philistines. But here's the other thing. God also understood that after 210 years of slavery, they weren't ready for a war. They weren't ready for a war to go do that. And it's the same thing as a parent. You got to be sensitive to what is your child ready to do. Don't force them to do something. Don't put them in situations that they're not ready for, that all they're going to do is fail. And so that's the balancing act here that we can learn from this week's Parsha. On the one hand, don't be helicopter Superman parent where you just come in there and do everything for them. On the other hand, yes, you wanted them to be independent and learn things on their own, but don't put them in situations where you know it's going to be just difficult and they're just going to fail. You got to know when to swoop in and when not to swoop in, when to assist and when not to assist, when to push and when to back off. And that is a couple of the lessons that we could learn from the beginning of this week's Parsha in terms of how God dealt with the Jewish people, the same way we can learn how to deal with our children, any position where your authority or mentoring is on the one hand, not just doing it for them. On the other hand, don't push them into things they're not ready for. Have a good Shabbat.